Hello, Ian Antonio Patterson again, coming to you from lovely cold Berlin for another episode of Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways. And what I have in store for you today is a poetry reading. Now, truth be told, this reading is actually something that I'm doing in place of another reading that I wanted to publish today that needs a little more work. So please do bear with me, and I hope this little warm up for the next episode will suffice. And it's from one of my favorite poets. It's from a lady called Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And it's actually a republish of something I did for the more conservative older sister show to this podcast. Did it about a year ago. And at the point in time when I did this, I was actually thinking about doing another show because, sometimes when you're doing a podcast about language learning, you get into cultural or even political aspects that are inevitable. But, sometimes we go off on tangents and go really deep into other aspects, cultural aspects, as I said, political, that might not be so closely connected anymore to the learning experience in the most traditional sense. So this poem actually kind of inspired this show that you're listening to right now. And I'm happy to be actually getting a chance to do a republish of it. Now, this republish of this show, it's a little bit styled up. So let me warn you, it's like really a rendition of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's work. I don't know if she would have read it the way that I have or I did, but I just hope you like it. And, I hope that this episode serves well as a kind of a warm up for the next episode that's coming up. Now, to be safe, I'm just gonna say, for argument's sake, that this piece is dedicated to my cat, none other than my cat called Kitty, who is still my best fan, and she's sitting right here on my table, staring at me right now. Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways is the more playful, less conservative little sister show to the English Coach podcast, Living the Language, where this piece was originally published. Now, if you are interested in a deeper analysis of the poem, as well as some of the history behind the writer of the poem, she has a Jamaican heritage just like me, you can always head on over to English Coach Podcast Living the Language and look for episode 61. All right, so whatever the case, I am doing it for you. And at this point, I just want to say without further ado, on with the show. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight, for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and in my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seemed to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. The poem you just heard is from an originally private collection of love poems by Elizabeth Barrett Browning to her then husband-to-be, Robert Browning. This poem resonates with spirituality and follows the structure of what is known as a Petrarchan sonnet, comprising 14 lines broken up into an octave of 8 lines and a sestet of 6 lines. The rhyme scheme and base meter of this poem are, to me, ambiguous, and I will leave that interpretation of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's intent as to the form of this poem to the professionals. I was newly attracted to her use, among other things, of enjambment, the running of a single thought from one line, couplet, or stanza to the next without a syntactical break. Owing especially to this reason, I think the rhythm of reading might vary depending on the reader and the reader's personal interpretation of the work. In the first octave, Barrett Browning explores the present situation or problem. Then, with the use of a volta or a turn, a solution or comment is made on the preceding octave or section. She takes a turn at the beginning of the sestet, where she expands her verse to explore the past and the future. The overall poem describes an all-encompassing love, which seems to defy and transcend time and space as it emerges from the mundane and understood into something whose proportions, while well-rooted in the everyday, eventually unfolds into a gravitational mass. With the use of spatial metaphor, Browning skillfully poses the quality of her love to depict a strong contrast between its own would-be normal, measurable aspects, then with its portrayal of having exceeded these normal measures. Her use of spatial metaphor also helps to scope and to express the tactile, physical dimensions and mass of her love in terms of depth and breadth and height. Upon suggesting that the body of her love can be enumerated in such a way, she adds more emphasis to the three-dimensionality and tactility of it with the use of polysyndeton. This is described as multiple use of a coordinating conjunction. In this case, her use of and many times. She then goes on to suggest that her love actually surpasses these methods and can, in fact, be better depicted on an even larger canvas, one that transcends into the spiritual realm, into the unknown reaches of the soul, revivifying its intensity. It's no attempt in any way on my part to depreciate Barrett's expression when I ask myself, who knows where the soul can reach? Considering the fact that the resonance of this love reaches us from her even today. The English Coach podcast takes my usual relaxed, accessible, human approach to your learning experience and, by definition, celebrates the virtues of diversity and inclusion, real people, real themes, and personalities from wherever you are.